Dr. Mirat Singh, good morning.
Good morning, Tathagat. Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Everything is working fine at your end technically with this session?
Yeah, I can see you bright and shining.
Very good.
Would like to see you, Miraj. Haven't seen you in a while. Okay.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, Miraj. Good to see you.
Am I visible now? I just
Yes,
started my video.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Morning, ma'am.
Morning. So you have one Kavita and one Kavitha on your panel today.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Singh, you did meet Ms. Rodriguez, right? Have you met her? She is the CEO of Zumutor.
No, I haven't met her. No, I have heard of her, but I've never met her.
Okay, so I got to know her from one of the collaborations that we were having with Anurag Rathore through the what is it called, Incubation Center of Excellence for Biopharmaceutical Training that he organizes every year through Bio. And we have had an industry academic collaboration with her. So she should be joining now.
Okay.
Tathagata, should we start the introductions?
I think you should.
Okay.
It's already 8:30.
Okay. So let me just share my screen quickly. And I'll also start recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so welcome back everyone to the second segment of Sci-ROI India virtual launch event. This morning, we have some unique and engaging sessions planned for you. We'll start with a discussion with stalwarts in the field of Indian academia, industry, startup, and government R&D agency about how to start, fund, and sustain cross-sector collaborations in Indian STEM in our session 3, which is going to be a panel discussion. This will be followed by, we diving into learning more about the different funding agent opportunities for early career researchers in India. In the next session with funding agency representatives and successful grant recipients. So we'll have presentations and then breakout rooms in that session starting after this. And at the end, we'll also have a virtual coffee room where you can come and interact with us informally and get to know more about Sci-ROI India and provide us your suggestions about how we can, go next from here. So with this, without further ado, I would like to start the first session for today. So we have our panelists here. So we are honored to have 4 extremely established STEM professionals with us today with multiple years of experience on collaborations, either inter or cross-sector. So I will start with our first panelist for the session, Dr. Kavita Singh. Dr. Singh is currently the director of DNDI, which is the Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative, South Asia Regional Office. And she holds an MBBS degree and MD in microbiology, and she has done an executive program in business management and postgraduate diploma in epidemiology. Prior to her current position, Dr. Singh successfully conducted first in-human vaccine trials for novel recombinant malaria vaccine candidates as a program director of multi-vaccines development program. She was actively involved in technology transfer from academia to industry. She was also the mission director of National Biopharma Mission at BIRAC prior to this position. Dr. Singh has extensive experience in the Indian healthcare R&D environment, in the pharmaceutical biotech industry, government, and not-for-profit organizations. She has worked cross-functionally from academia to industry. So welcome, Dr. Singh, for today's session. Our next panelist for this session is Ms. Kavitha Rodriguez. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Zoomotor Biologics, which was started in 2015. Zoomotor focuses on developing targeted natural killer cell therapeutics. It is headquartered at Cambridge, USA, and has a laboratory in Bangalore, India. It has 6 major venture capitalists participating in value creation in the niche space of immuno-oncology. Ms. Kavitha Rodriguez, she holds a MS degree in medical microbiology and started her career as a scientist. Having gained the knowledge of different aspects of biologics, she desired to become an entrepreneur. With an executive MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and backed by industry experience of 21 years, she succeeded at co-founding 2 biotech companies. She has made it to Fortune India's 40 under 40 2014 list and is equally dynamic on the personal front as well. She's the recipient of the Women in Technology Top 20 in India in 2018 and recipient of the Entrepreneur of the Year 2020 Biospectrum titles. Welcome, Ms. Rodriguez. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Mirat Singh. Dr. Mirat Singh is a program manager at DBT BIRAC, where he has been instrumental in his work on research calls from startups and industry for biologics development. He's involved in establishing an active collaboration between academia and industry as well. Dr. Singh completed his master's from IIT Roorkee in 2003 and his PhD degree from Institute of Microbial Technology, Chandigarh, where he worked on characterization of enzymes involved in riboflavin FAD biosynthesis, pathway of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Before starting his career in India, Dr. Singh was an instructor and senior research associate at Indiana University for 5 years in the US. As a scientist with rich experience in analytical characterization of biomolecules, Dr. Singh previously worked with Cadila Healthcare, Ahmedabad, where he was leading a team of analysts for the development of biosimilars. Welcome, Dr. Singh, for this session. Thank you for joining us. And last but not the least, our final panelist for today is Dr. Ipshita Roy. She was recently promoted to the professor position at National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, that's NIPER. Congratulations, Dr. Roy. And at NIPER, she has been teaching biotechnology and biochemistry to postgraduate level and doctoral students and is involved in research activities. In fact, we have her first student here with us today who will be moderating the session. So world is indeed small. Her research areas of interest include aggregation and stabilization of misfolded proteins, aptamer technology, downstream processing of proteins, and non-aqueous enzymology. Dr. Roy was a project scientist at IIT Delhi from 2001 to 2004. She earned her PhD from Indian Institute of Technology at Delhi, completed a postdoctoral position at IIT Delhi, and then she went to Germany for the von Humboldt Research Fellowship at University of Bonn from 2004 to 2005. She has authored and co-authored several national and international publications and is working as a reviewer for reputed professional journals. She is also the author of the book, Three-Phase Partitioning, which has been recently published by Elsevier. She's also in charge of the technical cell of the Institute and is actively involved in academia industry interactive activities. So I welcome all our panelists again. This is going to be such an exciting and unique session. So just to brief our audience a little bit about what we will be touching base on. So we will be looking into, how to initiate collaborations across different sectors. And then where do the funding usually come from for these kind of collaborations? And finally, probably the biggest, the thing is to sustain these collaborations, right? So what are the opportunities and challenges associated with that? So with this, I would invite Dr. Tathagata Mukherjee, who will be the moderator for this session. Tathagata, all yours.
Thank you, Manali, and good morning, good evening to all our audiences, and thank you so much, our panelists, for joining today and and this is going to be a great session on cross-sector collaboration, and we're all looking forward to learn more from you. And there are very many young scientists who are transitioning to India. Some of them have already done so, and they would really benefit to know about the multiple research opportunities across cross-platform, be it academia, industry, and your input today is going to be very helpful for all of them. So let's kick the session forward with talking about a little bit about the initiation of collaboration. Dr. Kavita Singh, you have been part of this MVI, and there you had to deal with various entities, the industry, the academia, the for-profit, the not-for-profit, the NGOs, the government. These multiple entities you brought together in creating the first antibody, first antigen for malaria to be tried in India in a clinical setting, and then getting this work forward. How difficult did you find it to initiate such a collaboration?
Hi, Tata. Good morning and evening to everyone. And thank you for this question. So difficult is not the word, I would say. Yes, getting people from different backgrounds of motivation needs a lot of patience, needs consistent communication, and needs to understand the background from which each organization, industry, or academia, or funding agency is coming from. So I think those are some of the attributes you need to bring in when you get such interdisciplinary collaborations, for sure. Most of us, in fact, majority of us don't get trained on this while we are students, or even while during our post-graduations, post-doc. This is not something we routinely experience. So it's good to speak to people when you're going to initiate such efforts. It's good to have relationship with each partner of yours. And it is good to be having transparency in such a relationship. I think that's very critical to such interdisciplinary, cross-functional platforms where you need everybody's support and a very seamless support, right? So I don't know if you're aware, even Genova was a part of it. It was a huge collaboration. Somebody was making the antigen, somebody was doing a tech transfer, somebody did API, made the drug substance, somebody made formulation, somebody did adjuvant. So yes, it was a multidisciplinary, but a very satisfying experience. But it is doable. That's the bottom message. It is doable. Thank you.
Very nice. Dr. Roy, if you would like to share some of your experience with the inter-academia and the academic industry collaboration that you are trying to initiate through the technical cell at your institute.
Yeah, thank you, Tathagata, and good morning and good evening to everyone. So initiating technology, initiating transfer, initiating collaboration basically is something which with the majority of the institutes now, they have, they are proactively working towards it. Earlier it was that you had to, if you knew somebody somewhere and you knew what they were doing, you met them somewhere, then only you could talk with them and knew what they were doing, and then initiate a collaboration. Now most of the institutes have some sort of database, and these are all searchable databases. So any agency who wants to, or any person who wants to, can go through those databases. It is possible. And then every institute now also is working towards having some sort of business development cell, which was earlier not at all a concept. It was that if we are academicians, we work only for academic research and that's the end of it. That is still the thrust, but now the recognition is there that if possible, you look for some sort of collaboration that the technology that you've developed in-house can be taken forward. But yes, in all of these activities, trust is the major thing, which is why most of these things initiate, but do not sustain long term. So first knowing through databases, and then of course, having trust in your partner. I think I agree with Kavita, what she said there.
It's very interesting that you point this key concept of having trust between partners, and Dr. Singh also talked about transparency. Ms. Rodriguez, as a part of an industry and being a part of a successful startup, initiating the collaborations, can you throw some light on the challenges and the successes that have come out of you through your experience?
Sure. Thank you so much, and good morning and good evening to folks on this particular call. It's indeed a pleasure to have kind of diverse set of folks on this call. Good to meet the folks here. Thanks, Tata, for this invite. I think Ipshita kind of struck that chord, right? So it's moved from the whole only academia piece to a little more to do with industry. Like if you would see, there are a lot of technology transfer offices, right? Whether it be the C camps of India or whether it be in Harvard or the West Coast cluster, etc. There are a lot of these technology transfer offices which are therefore focusing on pure academic research being convertible into kind of industry related collaborations, and therefore seeing if there is even potential to see either a drug, a molecule, a technology kind of cross over on the other side to kind of commercialization. So I think that transition is there. I have seen it and given a bit of experience in this space. We did multiple collaborations here in India, whether it be with the C camp of the sorts or multiple BIRAC-driven initiatives. We also done, kind of collaborations with the Harvard Meds and UCSDs and things like that. It's moved in a way, and I want to say in my own learning over the past few years, it's moved in a more, I want to say, seamless manner by means of there are structures available on the academic side, which deals with IP, which deals with the commercial piece of it, that it's not going to be only a relationship that's being built with scientists who are developing the technology, right? There's a complete ecosystem, I want to say, that's very forward-looking. So I've been a part of that, very cohesive ecosystem, and I'm happy to speak a little later more on that. Thanks, Satan.
Thank you so much. You did touch about this ecosystem and IP, and we will touch base upon those two topics when we talk about sustaining our collaboration. These will be very important at that point of time. But you also mentioned about various BIRAC-driven initiatives, and we have Dr. Mirat Singh. Dr. Mirat Singh, you have been the cord that tied the industry and the academia together for quite some time through BIRAC. And the mission of BIRAC is to ultimately foster all kinds of support to make a product at the end of the day. How did you were in the thickest of things? How did you see these initiations of collaborations happen, both from the academia side as well as the industry side?
Yeah, thank you, Tathagata, and good morning and good evening to everyone on this panel and whoever is attending this meeting. So, rightly said, I mean, collaborations are must. I mean, in the modern day science, collaborations between academia and industry is must. And this is one area where India needs to progress a lot. This system of collaboration between academia and industry is very strong in Western and European countries, but in India, we are making progress, and BIRAC has this main aim that the collaboration, the ties up between industry and academia gets stronger. India as a developing country has done significant amount of work in basic science in academic institutes. And I believe that we have the scientific, we have the kind of scientists and researchers in our academic institutes of repute who can actually now venture into translational research. It is important that academic institutes make a mandate that a certain amount of their funding will only go towards the translational research. I understand that basic science is important. Research towards basic science should be continued, but it should be made uh, a sort of mandatory for the academic institute that, okay, this certain amount will go towards translational research, and also the reach out to the industry. Industry should be aware that what kind of research is going on. Academic institute do publish it on their websites, but sometimes it is not enough. Towards this, we have established various technology transfer offices who are actually reaching out to industry and academia. They are acting as bridge between academia and industry. They are showcasing the capabilities of academia to industry that, okay, if you have these type of requirements, you can reach out to this academic institutes. We have a researcher there who is working on this particular problem area. So these ties, I think we need moderators in between academia and industry, and the rest of the things, various aspects related to IP, related to regulatory requirements, related to MOUs, all this can be sorted out. But the first and the most important thing is you should stand on a common ground. You should understand that you have common goals and you should have common requirements. Then only a successful collaboration can work. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Common ground, common requirements, these are very important points. And Professor Roy, my question to you is that from the academic standpoint, where usually we have inculcated basic research, what kind of initiatives are being taken today? You did talk about the change that has happened over the last decade or so. What initiatives are being taken today to reach this common ground where some research, hopefully with wider industrial applications, are being encouraged?
Yeah, so the first thing is to seek the common ground, and for that you need to have partners who will give you that common ground, or from where the common ground emerges. So as far as that is concerned, there are two things. One is, of course, the mindset has changed. That is a big change. And then there is a lot of push from the government side also. So if you're looking for funding, you need to show in a majority of the projects how it is not that you have to translate it, but what is the next step? You have short-term goals to be set, you have long-term goals to be set. So there's a lot of push towards, if you want funding, that you set up your goals right at the beginning. And that is what is important. The other way in which you bring somebody in, whether it is industry or an academic partner, is that like in case of our institute, for example, the industry interaction is more for the simple reason of the sector that we work in. But more than that, what I also learned here, I come from a basic science background, but what I learned here was that it is not always necessary that when you're looking for translational research, that you're looking for very big goals. There are very small goals also which can be translated, transferred to industry, and which is what the industry needs. It is not that all the time they're looking for, the next blockbuster. So there are very small problems that they want to be solved, which the institute or the academic institute has the capability of solving, but is not even aware, and the industry is not aware that this is a capability that exists here. So now there are various kinds of forums that are there. There are where the industry gets to interact with the academia. And again, I would say that transparency and trust need to be built into this process. But there is a lot of talk going on to identify each other's needs, build that need, and then to go on from there. The other thing that has happened, a positive step, is that maybe it's more of an IP thing, so not to be discussed here, but academic institutes or academicians now are permitted to go on and start their own companies, which was something which was not permitted earlier. As per rules, it was not permitted earlier. Now it is permitted. Of course, each institute has a different way of executing it. There are different kinds of approvals, permissions, etc. required. But if you can do that, you can utilize the incubator facility that exists in your institute or nearby institutes, then you are able to take the technology much forward than what you would do in a simple academic setup. So all kinds of positive steps are there. It's just the awareness, and then of course to look for the right kind of partner. Those are the steps that are.
Thank you, Professor. You made a very interesting and very important point, is initiating small projects, micro projects, which can be very easily taken care by the academic institutes, which could otherwise take some time for the industries. So, Ms. Rodriguez, in this respect, how can you throw some light on some of the initiatives that you have done in terms of solving a bigger problem by breaking it down into small problems, which you can collaborated with the academics to get things moving, or other industries?
Right. Sure. So on this particular, kind of topic, right? Since it's that brought it up like this, it's true. It need not be the next blockbuster that academia or industry is developing, and then there is a crossover, so to speak. There are multiple modules because now technology is extremely diverse, right? I mean, it can be broken down into bits. So in this particular context, an example that we worked on was back at UCSD and at Harvard Med, they were developing some stuff which a couple of researchers wanted some help on, just kind of an antibody library, hits, etc., and they wanted to pull out some novel hits, right? We were able to provide kind of comprehensive help across a period of time, which was constructed in a reasonably flexible manner, right? Otherwise, it could be only in one way, which is a fee-for-service model, which is a model which is quite archaic, right? Because in this particular space, there is IP being generated on both sides. Therefore, a technology transfer office comes into place. There is also these agreements that have to be in place where there is joint IP ownership, future ownership, if there is a partnership, what happens, etc. I think we have now reached a point where there is enough, let's say, nuanced knowledge on both sides. Industry side as to how to collaborate with academia, on the academic side with regard to the TTOs that are already there, which will house these technologies and quickly say this is possible, right? So to your direct question, Tata, we did work on smaller pieces, for example, these antibody libraries, which are available to these folks, and we generated some interesting data. We were able to share the data, and they were able to go forward with it. This was possible only because of a nimble way of working with it. And going back to, I think, what the other speakers had to say, right? This is also built on a tenet of trust, right? And this trust is not just one of those esoteric words, right? It has to be constructed by means of, let's say, a platform that is available, right? Which means either academia puts forth all of its requirements out there on a portal saying these are the technologies developed, we are open to partner with industry, or industry puts forth, kind of a requirement saying we are looking for these targets, we are looking for these platforms, we would like to work with this person, and then there should be a nimble way of working for it, right? Otherwise, we have seen in the past 4 to 5 years back, it was extremely tough, very siloed approaches. I think it's moving forward both in India and outside, and we have experience on both sides now on this.
A very excellent point. And you again circle back to this point of trust. And Dr. Kavita Singh, when we started the session with you, you emphasized on the transparency. As a part of DNDi, you are looking to create a solution for a particular problem, which is very important for the nation and by its translation to in the global platform. Now, with trying to create such solutions, as you mentioned, you need to collaborate, you need to have trust, you need to have cross-platform people working together towards the common goal. You did talk about transparency, you did talk about patience. Can you throw some more light through some kind of a case study or any personal experience, whether being in DNDi or MVI, where you initiated the whole thing from the conceptual phase to the final product, and some of the experience you can share with our younger colleagues?
Sure, Tathagat. It's really interesting to hear about Dr. Ipshita and Kavitha. Very, very valid points all of them have made. Maybe before I take an actual example, I would like to really touch upon this beautiful organization I've got attached to for the last few months now, which is the Drugs for Neglected Disease Initiative. We call ourselves a virtual orchestra, because the organization does not have its own capacity, infrastructure, but what we have is we have those human resources. You have scientists, you have deep people with deep knowledge who what they do is collaborate with global partners. So, we say it's a global stage now. Kavitha also repeatedly mentioned, it's not just within India, you collaborate. We need to think cross boundaries. We need to think cross continents and go for collaborations, because one is, again, Kavitha mentioned, technology is so advanced. Sometimes it's so niche area that you may not find a partner right next door. You may not find a partner in the same country. So be open to, have the right partner with the right intent and technology available and build those blocks. And the faster you are able to build those blocks, the faster you're going to track down that path of what you are going to achieve. And I'll taking the same example, which I was, because I've been, an integral part of that was the malaria vaccine candidate, where the discovery happened in an Indian academic institute. So we had some excellent scientists who had a portfolio of discovery, which had to be taken forward for a product. It was exactly the case of lab to clinic. And we had international funding, we had international partnerships, we had industry partnerships, we had academia partnerships, all built in through a grant which came out from the government sources, in fact, and multiple sources. So it was not just one grant, there was international grants. So you pick up which grant caters to which part of your research, actively identify the next grant, which is because many grants do have a focus area. Somebody wants to focus in the downstream, somebody wants to focus upstream, somebody wants to focus tech transfer. So identify the right partner. And yes, actually, we had 11 partners in this collaboration. That's a number I remember, because it was certainly, and when we published our first paper, the first in man, we had all of them featured there. They were part of the article, because it took us 5 or 6 years to go down. I'm just hoping it doesn't take our new scientists that 6 years. It's much shorter than that. But happy to share more whenever I get an opportunity. Thank you for this.
Excellent. This is a wonderful thing, because to our EM viewers, you see, getting 11 people from various organizations, various field, not having the same technical expertise, but gelling them together to form this cross-platform collaboration is all that it takes to become very successful in this. In this one question we have from one of our audiences, some of the networking opportunities which might foster the interactions more and finding a common ground. Could you throw some light? Anybody? It's open to all panelists if you want to talk.
So I could just mention here, and I'm sure Miraj would also really talk about BIRAC doing that. We do have our annual meetings where industry, startups, academia, everybody is invited. And that's the time you give them their overnight, their dinners, lunches, where you have people waiting. We do have that. And even while I was at National Biopharma Mission, we would ensure that, suppose we had the vaccine, so we had those streams, vaccine stream, a biotherapeutic stream, devices. So we would have programs where, like for vaccines, so that people are interested. There's a biologist, and there are people with assays, there are people with animal models, where people have actually been scientists. So we would get them all on the same platform. And we did see so many, it was so interesting seeing those discussions happening on the small tables or on the side coffee sites. So at least BIRAC does it very often, and I'm sure Miraj could talk more about the annual events which does, and Dr. Ipshita also mentioned.
Yes, we will come to Dr. Mirat Singh when we are talking about the funding and the collaboration, which is going to follow right after this. Dr. Ipshita Roy, if you have something to share on this networking thing before we move from initiation to the funding part of this discussion.
I think the global or the overall networking mechanisms are initiated more by the funding agencies like BIRAC and other agencies. But as far as databases, etc. are concerned, they are maintained by many of the departments, funding agencies also, as far as the institutes are concerned. So I think that was one of the questions, that where we can find such a database or where we can do that. So with different agencies, with different funding agencies, they maintain it as a part of whatever projects they have funded. So it is available on their websites. It is also available on many of the institute websites, what they do. Many of the ministries also, in fact, with all the academic institutes that are under their umbrella, they maintain those such kinds of databases on their websites. So it can be found at those places.
Yes, Ms. Rodriguez, do you want to add something regarding the networking opportunities?
Yeah, so I think from, let's say from the other side, networking opportunities are also available from the investor side of it, right? Investors specifically in the life sciences cluster, they would typically have, these meets that are announced on life science cluster websites, and then on the investor side. So if you look at, let's say, India life sciences investors, and you do a drop down and you need to do searches on this, they do have events, because they are participative in events. And when they do the events, you get an idea of what are the kind of startups that they invest in, or let's say, what are the kind of sectors that they invest in. And to attend some of these online meetings, now, of course, it's online, attend some of these online meetings does give some exposure and perspective. And then to kind of connect the dots as to what's happening, right? And I do this all the time, right? Whether it be use of LinkedIn or my partnerships in the US, we're constantly tracking what an investor is doing in the life science space, and then backtracking the kind of startups they do and what these startups are doing. And then you go back to the startups and see if they have collaborations, what are the kind of collaborations, what are the sectors that they are in, etc. So it can be, let's say, a top-down approach also, right? Yeah, that's what I want to add.
Fantastic. So we would like to continue talking about initiating the collaboration and go on and on, but our time is limited. So let's address the pink elephant in the room, which everybody touched upon. Ms. Rodriguez, you talked about investors' sides portal and the importance of the investors towards creating a collaboration. We talked about, Dr. Singh talked about BIRAC playing a very important role. So Mirat Singh, you were the program manager. You are the program manager in BIRAC for this cross collaborative academic industry collaborations. Can you throw some light? Can you on the government funding that is available, BIRAC, various initiatives right from the startup to our TLR level 4-5, and how they take things forward?
Yeah, thank you, Tathagata. That's a very good question. And in fact, someone who is actually aspiring to venture into entrepreneurship, he should understand all the schemes available with the funding agencies that will actually enable or help him to design his product development pathway. I will specifically focus on the BIRAC schemes. So the way the BIRAC has designed its schemes, that they all starts from the ideation stage to the clinical stage or up to the marketing stage. BIRAC supports all the activities. So the very important activity which BIRAC is doing is establishing the bioincubators in the country. Currently, we have more than 60 bioincubators in the country, and these bioincubators are very, very helpful for young entrepreneurs. They can reach out to these bioincubators, and these bioincubators provide right kind of ecosystem environment to the researchers. They provide the access to the common infrastructure, laboratory space, and also provides up-to-date information on all the grants available in India and abroad from where they can get grant. And also it provides a good networking platform for these young entrepreneurs. Along with that, IP and legal consultancy is also available in these bioincubators. Today, with more than 60 bioincubators in the country, BIRAC has about 1,000 startups supported through these bioincubators, and that's a huge number. So not only the space, because you can understand that unlike IT, biotechnology industry needs huge capital investment. And for someone who is just stepping into the field, it is not possible for him to get all the resources gather and then start his work. So bioincubator is a beautiful idea, and it has been executed beautifully by DBT and BIRAC. Coming to the schemes, once you are into the bioincubators or you have your own small company, we support right from the idea stage. The big scheme supports right from the idea stage. You have your idea. If the idea is liked by the expert committee, then you may get grant up to 50 lakhs to start with. You can have a proof of concept established. And then next stage, you go from idea to early stage of development, and then late stage of development are supported through BIPP and BD scheme. PACE scheme is specifically designed to foster the academia and industry collaborations. We have more than 350 collaborations supported through PACE scheme. And these are largely in the field of medical devices and diagnostics. There are some areas which we need to actually focus more, specifically drug designing and discovery, but we will come later on to that. I will just not deviate from the schemes I'm talking about. So we have all these schemes right from the idea stage to the clinical stage, and then along with this, we also actually guide the our grantees through venture capitalists. We can organize these different networking platform meetings, B2B meetings, and before this, we were discussing about the networking opportunities. So BIRAC is very proactive in this. We understand that networking between academia and industry is very important. We organize a global event, Global Bio India, which is a very big event. It's like a week-long event where startups and small companies gets very good opportunities to interact with investors, big companies, academicians get opportunities to get the funding from industry. So all these things happen. Also, BIRAC on weekly basis organize IP and legal clinic where anyone who is interested to know answers to the questions, if they have any problem regarding the product development pathway, any regulatory help they need, any IP help they need, they can just register and they can participate in this online IP and legal clinic. So that is a weekly event. Along with this, all the bio incubators, they also organize, I think in a month or so, they keep on organizing networking platform meetings. They invite venture capitalists to support their startup companies in-house there. So all these activities are being done. Any further information about the schemes available at BIRAC can be seen at the website of BIRAC, and I will be happy to share any details if anyone is interested. So yeah, thank you.
This is very informative. So all our young researchers who are trying to get come back to India, transit to India, or have already come back, this is a very useful resource that you can tap into, and you can get a lot of information about the various funding opportunities to initiate the thing. I have a very direct question for Professor Roy. Professor Roy, if some academician wants to take advantage of these initiatives of BIRAC and then eventually take advantage of the incubators, which is probably housed in various academic institutions as well, is there any kind of funding support the academic institution also provides to assist with the BIRAC, or is there any kind of facilities that they provide in terms of perks or anything?
So you're talking about a project that is supported by BIRAC, whether that also has some additional support from the academic institute?
Yes, and if somebody is applying for a funding from BIRAC or wants to initiate industry academia collaboration, how much is the support that comes from the academia management towards this collaborations?
Oh, the academia management loves those kinds of proposals because they're twofold. One is, of course, the grant itself, because you're bringing in grant. The second is that once you get in touch with industry, and then there is financial support for that activity. Otherwise, the institute would have had to support it, right? So if it shows promise, the institute would have to provide the funds. So the first part is funding. The second part is because you're now getting into an industry collaboration, which means that some progress will happen in a positive direction towards the product, towards the final product that you're interested in. So there is a lot of support from the institute side, from the administration part side of the institute. Incubators, etc., are anyway built in a model that they provide support as far as the activities of any kind of collaboration. Not collaboration, but you can take the help of incubators for these kinds of activities as well. The activities of collaboration, of course, will not be carried out in the incubator unless the activity is meant for an incubational purpose.
Okay.
But there is a lot of support.
This is nice to hear, that to get such support and encouragement from the institute itself.
Yes, it is. It's very much a favorable look.
So Ms. Rodriguez, I have a very difficult question here, also coming from the industry background. For academia, this is a grant. For industry, it is a loan that has to be repaid over time. So, but it's a very good initiative to have at that point of time. How do you react to this? How much of this funding opportunities that have you leveraged, or you source your other funding?
Right. I think, Dr. Mirat kind of put it well, right? See, there are multiple schemes. And, so for me, I've been a part of these schemes, whether it be, kind of the big and then translating to VIPP, etc. And then you access more and more money, which is great. Now, I think there has been a transition even in the way BIRAC has looked at its schemes, right? And all the way from, let's say, 2013 to where it is now. There is a lot more from, let's say, from the government side, the way you look at funding an opportunity, right? So now you have fund of funds, now you have equity participation in a startup that was formed out of an idea, etc. So it's no longer chasing 50 lakhs and 2 crores, etc. Right? You need to look at bigger monies. And how are those bigger monies going to come? It's not going to come directly from the government, right? Because this is risk. So it needs to come either, let's say, from a VC, etc. If there is VC participation, now there is opportunity for the government to come in with risk participation, right? Therefore, your asset is unhindered, right? To the extent that you have the ability to go license, sell whatever it is that you need. I think that's one great thing that, from the government side of things, that the changes that have happened to look at how really risk portfolios change and how, whether it be very novel niche platforms or drug development or things have to happen. That's one part of it. The second part of it, which you had mentioned, is yes, when you're in the early stage and you want to be kind of unhindered, unhitched with regard to how you develop it as a startup. We've been through this, right? We believe that there is phenomenal support by means of clusters, the government coming in, access to funding, and then what else it can open up. Now the conversations have changed. It is possible to go ahead and license and to do things where there is not a drag factor, right? Saying you have your handbrakes on, you cannot go further. It is already part owned by somebody, etc. So that part is gone. But this is a very careful construct one has to go through, right? And to read between the lines to see what the agreements look like. And now it's easier than it was before to get such agreements done. The third part of it, I would say, is that incubators are incubators, right? You need access to more capital. It is on your onus to go out there and get more capital, right? There is only this much, a center of excellence can do, an incubator can do, an academic collaboration can do. It needs to move beyond that. And that's something, either startups have it in them, that gumption to go out there and raise money, risk capital, etc. So I think it's kind of a coming together, and it's not one person's responsibility in this thing. It needs to go together, right? And it's very easy to say, you know what, I'm not going to do any government grants because it just hinders me. That's not true anymore, right? And I live to tell that tale because I'll flip the company to be a US company. Now I know what it's like to be on both sides of it. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm sure people are hearing this, and this is a very encouraging news. I want to hear your comments, Dr. Kavita Singh, in regards to your experience with DNDI. Now, Ms. Rodriguez is a part of a for-profit organization, and she shared her experience. For DNDI, which is a not-for-profit organization, it is taking some very, very bold steps towards creating an amazing solution. And we know all of them need money. How are you able to motivate investors to pitch in money? And that's the part A of the question. Part 2 is how are you diversing the money to academia or industry and other places or research institutes to collaborate and come with a solution? If you can throw some light on that.
Okay, thanks, Sagat. For a not-for-profit organization, I'm not sure if I'll use the word investors because they are a different breed altogether. Their returns of investment calculation matrices are very, very different. So here, what we certainly are, the people we reach out, because DNDI is a totally fund dependent on funds, donations to moving drug. In fact, it is beautiful. It has a portfolio which looks very similar to a pharma company. It has, right from the hit stage till the much beyond access stage. So we don't say commercialization, we call it access, because we work on diseases for which usually investors are not there. But you'll be very surprised to see that there are still many people, there are still many large organizations, large governments. So our portfolio of funds is huge. We also need to de-risk. We need to mitigate the risk factors, and even the funding philanthropic groups or agencies, government, everybody would like to see co-funding as a mechanism. It gives them the confidence that the science has been vetted by different experts, and it is a science worth pursuing, science worth advancing. So, and in fact, the India now with its CSR, with the corporate social responsibility, it's beautiful. Yes, our CSR had mainly been focused on the areas of immediate impact where we are seeing. But as you would see in the last couple of years, government even opened up for COVID, right? So there are some, so like Kavita was saying, there are changes happening in that side, which is investment. There are changes happening on the way we are raising funds. Today I can reach out to a large company to, within pharma space, outside pharma space, because I think COVID there's going to be an era pre-COVID and era post-COVID. So yeah. COVID has also really thrown the importance of enhancing your own funding mechanisms within the country and supporting such efforts, because you realize a drug saves lives. So there's a lot of change which is happening.
This is good, and all the changes are positive, as you mentioned. Dr. Mirat Singh, we have a question from you from one of our audiences. They're talking for a PACE big grant. Do they need to own a company or collaborate with a company, or are they allowed to apply as an assistant professor from academia?
I will talk about the big first. So for big, you need to be incubated in a bioincubator that enhances your chance to get the grant. Otherwise, as a company registered by 2013 Companies Act, you can apply for big grant as well. So that is for the companies. For PACE scheme, PACE has two parts. So one is purely for the academia, and another scheme is for academia and industry collaborations. So as an assistant professor, you can apply for the PACE grant. So that is for academia only.
And I hope that answers this question, Piyush. And we'll move on. One question that has been coming for cross-sector collaboration is what is the kind of funding that people can approach for? So BIRAC is one option that where people can get a lot of these funding opportunities. But apart from BIRAC, if some young academician wants to approach for funding, they go to their institutes. Is there other institutes or industries who are willing to fund the project, and how do they advertise it? How does this information percolate to the common masses? Anybody can answer this question.
So, even if BIRAC has created 60 odd incubators, many of these incubators have even been given the grants to support. So I will not say support. They get equity in lieu of the investments they make. So it's like a multiplier effect which they are doing through incubators. A lot of DST, Department of Science and Technology, also has a lot of grants, also have a lot of international other grants available for individuals or for companies. There are loans, which of course, I'm not sure if people are interested in loans, but yes, companies do get extremely good loans in terms of the percentage and the moratorium period, which everybody gets from technology development. TDBP is there, which has many success stories. So if you know the biggest biotech success story of Shanta Biotech, where the initial funds came in from TDB. So there are other sources, and there are a lot of intramural grants, with many institutes to have their own intramural grants, which help them support their research to a particular level.
Professor Roy, in terms of accessing funds for this technical unit that you had, do you face certain challenges which, or do you have some, and if you do, if there is a solution that you would like to advocate to mitigate such challenges?
Accessing funds is that we make people aware of, there are different kinds of calls at different times that are there with very different funding agencies, which we make people aware of. And then we help them, there's a mechanism, so we help them write grants the right way so that hopefully they are successful applications. We also correspond with the industry because many a times the language is different, the jargon is different. So the industry asks for something, the academician replies in a different way, and then there is a communication gap. So we try to bridge that gap. I mean, the cell tries to bridge that gap so that everybody is on a common platform. So once we do that, we find that almost all of the issues are, I mean, to some extent answered. One thing that we face, I mean, which I have seen over the years is the question of IP. That is something that comes up. And there, I think, especially when I'm looking, if I'm trying to file a patent for something which is of an idea, then it is fine probably at the academic level. But if I am developing a technology which I expect the industry to be, to take it forward for commercialization, then I think what the academician needs to accept is that developing the concept is probably, we are talking of TRL 2 or 3 at the academic level. Whereas you need to take it to 9 or something so that it can enter the market. And that all of it, the industry is going to do if the industry partner is there. So as far as IP division is concerned, also, I think it needs to be framed that way, that you do not have unrealistic expectations. Of course, it is your project, it is your idea, your IP that has gone into it, into bringing out an idea. But to take it to the market for commercialization, for tech transfer, that's and this I realized over the years. It's I had absolutely no idea about this, but it's an entirely different ballgame. Developing a proof of concept and then taking it to the market for commercialization. So those are some of the hiccups I think we need to make the academician aware of, that you do not have unrealistic expectations of what you would expect out of a collaboration.
Okay, very, very nicely put. The other end, other side of the spectrum, Ms. Rodriguez, what are the expectations from the industries, and if there is anything that needs to change?
No, I think I think we have covered most points here, both from both sides, right? Since at least our kind of genesis was slightly different, right? I don't come from pure academia, but I come from one startup to another, right? So what I have been recipient to, and I've been very fortunate to have this kind of exposure, is this grant system. And believe me, this grant system varies, right? In India, and we are now recipients of a grant which is shared across Harvard Med and here. So we know how it works. And the systems, I believe, in India, at least now over the past year post-COVID, has eased up so much with the granting engines and granting agencies versus what we see outside. Because once those grants are a part of a larger hospital network, it takes close to 3 months to get a signature done. Whereas here in India, it's a lot more streamlined, right? At least for the grants that we apply to. That's one part of it, right? And it also depends upon, how you approach it, people and then what are the, relationships you've already set to get the ease of, kind of this piece of it going. The second part of it, I would say, is that if I had to do something else post the startup, is that it's great to have an asset or a technology that is already housed in a technology transfer office, which means it's gone through its paces of all of its initial POC, all of it, and it's ready and non-incumbent and ready to be out there for commercialization, right? Ready to be picked up. If it is going to have multiple strings attached, it is very, very tough. to therefore then, go through the whole thing of getting it funded, getting it strategically either licensed or placed, and then further funding, etc. So that's the way I would look at it. Any asset, any technology has to be reasonably free, so to speak, right, for its forward-looking goals. And therefore, I think from an academic side, researchers also have to be very aware that all the IPs owned, all the ownership, so to speak, that you have has to be at a very, let's say, sensible arm's length distance. Otherwise, it's not going to see light of day. If you want to be attached to it through its lifetime, it's something else. And we've seen that.
This is very encouraging, and I know the two take-home message I'm taking from this, from both of your inputs, is the importance of a technology transfer office in an academic institution, and how easily that can translate an academic excellent discovery to innovation as a product by the industry, and have setting up this is very important. So all young researchers who are thinking of starting it up at your end, please look up the possibility of engaging with your technology transfer office, and you can take it from there in terms of funding opportunities from industry and interests of industry. Dr. Kavita Singh, I had, while we are discussing this, it's probably a good time to move into the next and the last topic of this discussion, which is sustaining such a collaboration. And we talked about IP, we talked about having a very good transparency. You must have faced some challenges with the IP issues, on both sides. And if at all, if you have, what would be the solution for this?
That's a tough one. I mean, I wish we had an easy solution, because every case would be so unique. Right. Very unique. In fact, I would not be exaggerating when I said we were in one of our relationships, which was, I will not call it a failure, but call it a huge learning exercise, where the academicians didn't file an IP so that there would be simpler relationship management, as we go forward. And but a few years down the line of a relationship, we see the industry has filed a patent on their own name. And then we had to, it was a whole, the courts came into the IP courts, and there was such a huge investment which went in. So it is important that, I feel it's important that the academicians or new researchers take into account their responsibility of IP filing early, maintaining it, sustaining that IP, registering it, then having a clear cut. Certainly, please have these agreements, which Kavitha mentioned too, are very critical to your relationship management, right? The clear, whether there are expectations of royalty or there is joint IP as it grows, your first IP grows when the industry partner comes in. So the only one of the ways I would believe is, of course, trust is everything is good. It's nice to have friendly, nice to go out on dinners, but please have it documented clearly, witnessed, signed off. Think in advance. And this is where majority of our academician researchers do fail. The tech transfer offices concept is new to India. We didn't have them 5 years back. In fact, under the Biopharma mission, that was one of the main stress. We had said, please educate our researchers on IP management, filing and management, both. So have those agreements. You need to go that extra step if you want to be there. Walk that mile to learn this. There is no shortcut out.
Right. Very well said, because it is important to have the IP of the product with you. If you don't have that, because the industry must protect its process, otherwise it won't make a commercially viable solution for them, because other industry will pick it up. So they have to file an IP. So all academicians who are working on it, if you have something which you feel that could have an application, before you publish the result in a peer-reviewed journal, file an IP, because if you happen to publish in a peer-reviewed journal, it becomes a prior art. So you cannot file the IP after that. So wait for a year. It takes 1 year to get your provisional out, and then you can very easily get your publications. But file your IP. That's a big take-home message, and it's a very important thing for all people who are starting their career journey now. In this step, there is a lot of data that gets generated through these collaborations, and there might be some situation where people may not be very transparent in data sharing. Dr. Mirat Singh, have you faced such issues? And if you did, what was the solution that came out in bringing harmony between the collaborators in terms of data sharing and transparency?
Yeah, I think this is a very common scenario. But what we have found out that whenever a collaboration is being set up between industry and academia, it is important that all the things are captured very nicely in the agreement between the two parties. So that's actually an important component of the agreement when you are actually writing the agreement. So that should be properly thought through, and all the points should be neatly and nicely captured in the agreement. Then there is a possibility that such things will not emerge during the engagement between the two parties. Another thing which I would like to mention here regarding the collaboration between industry and academia, that what needs to be done that at the academia level, along with the IP training, a proper documentation training, because researchers do their training, and as a person working in industries, you will understand that for technology transfer, documentation is very critical. If your documentation is missing or some important experiments are missing, that that is the recipe for failure of technology transfer. So it is important that these type of training at the academic institutes regarding the IP and proper documentation, they are important, and researchers should be aware about those.
Professor Roy, do you have such cell in your organization where IP training can be given to young researchers who are joining or starting out in their career to make them aware of this?
Yes, we do have. We have an IP cell which has recently received a grant from, I think it's, but they, based on that grant, I do not remember the name of the organization, but based as a part of that mandate of that grant, they have to conduct workshops and seminars, and where they make people aware of IP. So what we do in our institute, and I think it's a common practice, it's not our institute specific, that once you get into any kind of dialogue, you cannot start a dialogue with an industry without a CDA. So the first thing that you do is you sign a CDA, and for that you have cells or sections available in the organization. You only start after you do that. And then what the IP division would be that you set it, the institute has an IP policy. If not, there is an IP policy for academicians available. But all of those points should be sorted out before you, otherwise it will lead to conflict. It will definitely lead to conflict, and that is not a pleasant situation at any level. But training courses are available. TIFAC also conducts training courses, but there are different IP cells also which conduct, because these can be conducted, these do not really require a bench or a laboratory, so they are mostly online. But these are conducted at regular intervals. Our institute conducts it, but other institutes also do conduct it. Every institute now, almost every institute has some sort of an IP cell, and there are trained people available. It's not that somebody else who has now come in to file patents. They now have registered patent agents who do these activities. So those mechanisms are in place.
This is very good, because the important thing is to acknowledge the problem and together find a solution. So this is a sore point, and it's very encouraging to see the academic institutions are taking care of this. Before we close this particular sub-session, Ms. Rodriguez, I have a question for you. The academic have a system there to protect their IP, to educate the people and move forward. And industry, of course, have their own IP cells to protect their IP from other competitors and other things. But when you do industry collaboration, which you have been part of, did you see it any different than what has been described?
So I think when you do industry collaboration, the kind of rules of the game, so to speak, are cast a lot ahead, correct? And there is the sense of iffiness is less because there are very staid rules by which it is done. CDS, etc., are done in dusted. Technologies are completely known. What one partner brings to the table is known. What the other partner brings, or furthering, so to speak, is known. The second thing is, I think there's precedence there, right? There have been licensing that's done. There is joint commercialization. Now there are joint phase ones that are done, etc. Right? And then now there are combination trials that are done. So I think with an industry, kind of, I wouldn't call it collaboration, let's say commercial, conversations. I think it's a lot to do with upfront milestone payments, contingent milestone payments, time driven to those milestone payments. There are, legal, huge behemoths involved in casting these agreements, right? I think so that let's say is a different beast. And, it's handled and we know how that works. The little more sensitive piece, especially when it's to do with startups and larger industry collaborations, is, the whole time sensitivity piece. Larger, mid-size biotechs, biopharmas, larger pharmas can always drag on the time to signing, to time to licensing, to time to first milestone. The startup then suffers that, right? So I think there needs to be, let's say, efforts for a reasonably ethical way of trying to sign these relationships off. So I would want to say it's different than academic collaborations, right? There are different people involved, right? Remember, there are investors involved, so they have a say in it. They are not going to let you sign off any kind of, let's say, commercial agreement that comes your way. So I think there are a lot of forces in that.
Right. Thank you so much. So now we are slowly coming to the end of the session. And before we close it, I have one question which I will ask each one of you. And to the extent of sounding like Arnab Goswami, let me just go ahead and ask it, 2 minutes each. So what would be one critical advice or suggestion for young researchers trying to initiate cross-sector collaboration for the first time in India? Dr. Mirat Singh, you go first.
Well, my advice to the researcher, in my opinion, the most important aspect for any to start any business adventure in India is to have a good idea with you. If you have a good idea, everything else is possible. We have the ecosystem, we have the experts who can address your IP needs, who can address your legal needs, who can guide you how to go through the product development pathway, but it all starts with a good idea. You should understand what is the requirement of the country. You should do a good homework to understand what are the unmet needs, or if there are solutions to any existing problem, how effective those solutions are they satisfying the economic requirement, are they, all the checkbox have to be signed. So if you have a good idea to solve any existing problem, then everything else is possible. We have the ecosystem, we have the support system. So my advice to young researchers, if you are planning to get into your business adventure, then you should start working on your idea, then everything else will follow.
Excellent. Professor Roy.
Yeah, thank you. So advice is probably too big a word for it, but I would say, based on what I have seen, you need to have realistic expectations, right? One very minor thing which may not be relevant here, but definitely will be relevant when you're starting your career in India, is you must be used to getting whatever enzyme, whatever antibody, whatever thing you need to, you say you want it in the morning, you get it in the evening in your lab. That is not something that's possible here, irrespective of whichever institute you're working here. So you need to set your goals accordingly, have realistic expectations. But that's one part of it, and that all of us face. But when you are trying to look for a developing technology which you think can be transferred, there are very small things. Again, I did not know of it. And then once I got into working with this technical, we have an excellent guy here who knows about these things. He has worked earlier with the industry. So what I came to know was, for example, a very simple thing. You are developing a technology for, let us say, in chemical reactions in green solvents. And then you say that it's a very good technology, do away with harsh chemicals, do away. You know all the advantages that are there. But then when that scientist is asked to do a cost calculation, that if I substitute this with this, then what are the costs involved, even if I go up to a gram scale synthesis? So like one of the panelists said, that those records are not available at all. So from where did he buy those chemicals? How much did they cost at that time? So very small things, but these kinds of things, if you're looking for tech transfer, or at least developing something, whether it reaches the tech transfer level or not is a different thing. But if you're looking at it from that point of view, these things need to be kept in mind. But basically have realistic expectations. So, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kavita Singh.
Difficult again, single advice, but certainly a suggestion that in our country, we have had this tendency to be working in silos. It's getting better. So please, when you come back, don't fall into that same working style. If you are in networking and multidisciplinary is critical. So please continue that. Thank you so much.
Very, very good advice. Let's move to our last panelist, Ms. Rodriguez. Your advice to everybody?
I think all the other panelists took away my thunder. I think you've said all that is needed to say, right? There is there is nothing, to take away from the fact that you need to be realistic. All the dreams that are attached to anything novel, all the research that you do, etc., which is great. There is a place for all of it. But I think there's also a realistic space, right? So I think my advice would be that when you're looking at, let's say, a research or a technology and that you want to translate it and you want to kind of move into the whole transition to, let's for a simplicity's sake, startup space, do look at the product market fit because it's constantly changing. What you thought is great and novel today is irrelevant tomorrow. And that cycle is becoming shorter and shorter, right? So today as a startup, I'm very relevant because what I developed 3 years back is still novel today. It is possibly not true in other cases, right? Therefore, the speed at which one is becoming irrelevant is so much faster. You need to be very cognizant of that. You have to be extremely nimble. What worked outside may not work here. And what did not work outside could brilliantly work here. So that's something, that dichotomy you have to keep in mind and be very nimble about it. And I think you should be very cognizant that a future thinking thing. You have an idea, you want to get funded. Yes, there are agencies to get you funded. But do you want small monies or do you want big monies? If you're cognizant of that, then you will keep track of what the funding agencies are doing, whether it be granting agencies, whether it be VCs, etc. So I think, kind of having that knowledge of it is good. And if you're doing a startup, do have a co-founder. It helps. So this is my two bet on it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. I would like to sum up the session. I wrote down 5 summing points, the 5 P's of getting a successful cross-sector collaboration. The first P is planning. You need to have very well thought out, planned ahead, and go to the nitty-gritty details of that. You must have patience. That's the second in my list. That without that, it is very difficult to have a very successful cross-sector collaboration. And perseverance. Don't give up. There will be clashes. There will be problems. There will be issues that might get acrimonious. But have patience. Deal with it. Acknowledge the problem. A solution will always emerge. The most important P is patent. Please file your IPs. Get your expectations from the IP very clear from the day one. Don't wait till it gets difficult to sort that out. And lastly, think about the product that you are going to bring out through this cross collaborative ventures. With that, I would like to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much for joining here. Please stay on for a little bit longer. Manali has some very interesting things to reveal for not only the panelists, but also the entire audience. There is some very interesting cross-sector collaboration information that we would like to share with you. And I would like to hand over this to Manali. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Tathagata, and all the panelists. It was really stimulating to hear all the new initiatives that have developed in just the last few years from the sound of it, right? So the rapid change that's happening in Indian STEM economy is very encouraging to hear. So with that, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to introduce a new initiative that Sci-ROI India would be bringing to the field as well. All of the panelists today has time and again mentioned how important it is to network, to initiate these collaborations. As Dr. Kavita Singh mentioned, we have a tendency as researchers to work in silos. So, collaborations don't come naturally to us, right? So to get out of our, this comfort zone and to start this networking and collaborations, Sci-ROI India brings to you this collaborative research database. And this is mainly for STEM professionals in India who are independently established and can initiate such collaborations. And they can be from any diverse fields and discipline. And this purpose of this database is to initiate and foster the inter and intradisciplinary collaborations between STEM professionals. And they can also start any international collaborations as well, because this database will be, it's a visual representation of all the researchers that are, that are available for starting these collaborations in India. And, if you are interested in this, you can, have your name in the visual representation. So I'll just quickly share my screen about, just show you very quickly what we have already on our website. So you can have an idea of where to go. And, if you're interested, we have the collaborative database already started with some of our members who have shown interest. So as you can see here, we are looking into diverse sectors. So we have some, encouraging participation from biological sciences. And then we're also looking into engineering and pure sciences, those kind of areas, industry, and any non-academic sectors as well. So, feel free to add yourself. After a short validation, we will be adding your name to the map. And what will happen is just showing you how this works. Your profile will be here, the information you provide us. So anyone can access this map and go, and if they're like, okay, this is a profile that, okay, I want to collaborate with this person, they can check out what they're working on. They can check out what topics of collaboration this person is interested in, and then they can contact this person either through LinkedIn or their official website. So this is like a short, something that we would like to, have you engage. So I request all of our members to please, if you're interested, go to our website and join the database. And we don't stop here. So we are just starting. As I said, this year, we would like to start this database, but with time, we would like to, also have some initiatives which will actively encourage the members who have joined this database into starting collaborations, right? So we would like to have some ideation hackathons, and as well as, I think some of the panelists today mentioned the importance of having tech transfer, the departments in the institutes, and we know that not all the Indian institutes are still there, right? So we'd like to also work in that field and have some, improvement over there as well. So, and we are open to suggestions. So let us know if you have more ideas in this area of cross-sector collaborations. And yeah, I think that's it for this session. We do have our upcoming session. We will start at, I think, around 10 a.m. IST. So please join us over. I'm posting the link in the chat box. It's also in the, in the PDF, in the booklet PDF that you have received. So please join us in the other session, which will be on the early career grants in India. And we'll have an engaging panel discussion as well as breakout rooms with funding agency representatives and successful grant recipients. So hope to see all of you there. And once again, thanking our panelists. Really interesting to hear all of you, to have all of you on a Sunday morning here. Thank you, Tathagata, brilliantly moderated. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you in the future as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Kavita. Very nice experience.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. And it's been it's been an honor, and it's been a great privilege to hear from all of you. And I'm sure all these people who are starting up, they will definitely benefit from this.
You moderated it beautifully. Great.
Yes.
And pleasure meeting Kavita and Ipshita.
Pleasure meeting all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Same.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.